Okay. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gandy Slaves. As always, I'm your host, Gandy, and today I have my guest with me. I want to make sure I pronounce this right. Sanjai.
Sanjai Mehta. Yeah.
I'm not the greatest with pronunciation at times. I know people even get my name confused, and it's it's fun. It's fun.
Not a problem.
But yeah, let's introduce yourself a little bit and talk about who you are, so the guests have a better understanding of just you as a person.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. A little bit about myself and my background. So I wear a number of hats. I have a day job, which I do for a big major telecommunications company. That takes up, a fair bit of my time. I run a podcast called Success Matters, where I sit with guests from all sorts of backgrounds where we talk about what success means to them and what does that look like. I also coach people outside of my day job. So I do some coaching for people who are looking at primarily there are moments in their life, right, where they're thinking, okay, what's next? What do I want to do next? Now, I've got a framework that I follow called BOLD, which looks at how you look at your belief system, the outcomes that you're looking to drive, and how you're developing that. And then going on from that, I'm also the chairperson of a charity which is set up to help children through education called Blue Bike Foundation. So those are all the different hats that I wear.
It is. That's amazing. And I guess what got you into your success podcast and what got you in, like, what motivated you to want to start your podcast and teach
Yeah.
people
Okay.
success?
Sure. Yeah. So a number of things actually kind of came together. I've worked in a sales role and I've been in the sales role for a long time, maybe more than 30 years. And in sales, you are judged by the number only. It's very kind of black and white. You make your number, you're a success. You don't make your number, you're a failure. You could actually lose your job if you don't make your number. So it's very binary. It's pretty high pressure as a result of that. And when I moved out of the sales role, I had that moment to get some headspace and clarity. And the idea that success is simply measured by a KPI or a metric was something that didn't really sit well with me. And so I thought to myself, well, actually, why not explore what success means with other people? And initially, it was going to be just some coffee conversations. But I have two people that coach me, and both about the same sort of time said, well, why don't you do a podcast? And that kind of came together, right? Why don't I do a podcast where I have a coffee conversation with someone and we record it and other people can listen into that and they can see what success means. So that's how the podcast was born. The other part of it as well was that I've kind of lived a life that many of us live, which is, there's the set pattern that you have. You get educated, go to university, you get your degree, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you have your family, and that's it. That's kind of the path that we follow. And as I was approaching my 60th birthday, it was like, there's more to give, right? There's more to life. And my kids were older and all of those aspects. So it just became a natural thing to do to open a new chapter and, some new doors. So that's how I came to be doing what I do.
I really enjoy that because I know. So recently, I'll be honest, I watched a documentary on I think it's the Miter or Myers Byers, the personality
Oh
exams
yeah,
that they give.
Myers-Briggs, yes.
Myers Briggs, my bad.
Hmm.
But yeah, and it was just going into how a lot of people are able to pretty much beat the system through that personality test and get over on people and employers because they can just like put whatever they want that they think the employer is going to want them to say to get that job. And it just really like sat it just really resonated with me a little bit because I was one of those people, to be honest.
Okay. Well, you gamed the system, did you, to get the
And
job?
yeah, yes, in the past I have. Like
Okay.
I've just answered the questions that I thought the personality that they would want for that job.
Hmm.
And then I go to the interview and they're like, "Oh, well, your test said that you were this kind of person." And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure, that's me." Whatever to get that job.
Yeah.
It's just it's just crazy how we grow up and think that we're gonna have like this big, beautiful life and do all these goals and make all these dreams happen. but the dreams are just based off of just this one concrete idea, which you had stated. We wake up, go to work, have a family, and die.
Yes.
And I don't know. I feel like there should be more to life than that at times. Like I don't know what that necessarily is, to be honest.
Well,
But
on that point,
yeah.
so one of the reasons why 60 was quite fixed in my mind was that my father died at the age of 60, and I was 14 years of age at the time. And his death was a very sudden death. One minute he's standing there in front of me, talking to my brother, and the next minute he's on the floor and he's passed away. So at the time, I dealt with it in a very logical fashion. And it was like, well, we all die, right? There's one thing that's certain in life is death. The other thing is taxes. Those are the two things that we have in life that are certain. Um, so I dealt with it in a very logical fashion. But what I didn't realize until I started to approach my own 60th birthday was how deeply that had kind of embedded in me.
Oh,
And it became something that really was almost eating away inside of me, that I'm coming to this age, I'm coming to this point. What's going to be next for me? And my father didn't have the opportunity to do what he wanted to do beyond his 60th, for having passed
yes.
away then. My mum's plans had all kind of got put to one side as well because, my father had passed. So that, if you like, life beyond 60 was something that I hadn't necessarily seen between my parents. I'd seen, of course, my mum. So it was a whole new thing and a whole new chapter. And so when you stop and think about that, it's like, well, actually, I was waiting inside. I didn't realize I was waiting to get to this point, to start a new life, to start a new kind of chapter in my life. But the reality is, you can start that at any time. You just need to make the steps to do it, and make the move to start that new thing that you want to do, or that new venture, or a new a new reality for you.
I love that. It's beautiful. I think it really is that you were able to experience that and make that realization in life. And like, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like I am in that rediscovery phase myself right now, like
Hmm.
trying to figure out who I am and what I want in life and what are some hobbies or what are some things that I can do besides just going to work every day or going to school every day and really trying to figure out who I am. And I think this is beautiful. Like it's such a like I have so much curiosity and so much satisfaction in my life right now, being able to try new things for the first time and learn who I am as a person. Like it was rough at first, to be honest, to be able to get closure and be okay with sitting with myself. But I feel like now that I finally have, I have so much fulfillment in life.
Mm. I think a lot of us, we put up these walls, right, and these barriers, and
Mhm,
it's almost because there's a societal expectation on us. There's maybe a cultural expectation. There's a family expectation. There's all these different expectations that come around that create these walls, and you think you've got to be in a certain way, or behave in a certain way, or do a certain thing, when the reality is those are just false walls, right? They're not
mhm,
they're not real. You can do what you want. You can work out within that. So long as you're not doing harm, then
yeah.
do what you feel is right for you, and explore things. And the other thing is that fear of failure, which kind of
Mhm,
goes back to the expectations that people set, is that you don't want to fail for your parents or for your siblings, or you
mhm,
don't want to have people pointing fingers at you, that you look at you didn't do that, and look at all these people, they're doing really well. And there's so many facets like this, right? I'm just picking two or three, where that fear comes to play, and then we again build a wall for ourselves, and we sit within this comfort zone, and we don't try new things and do different things. And if you can start to strip that away, then you can start to really enjoy and explore life.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I mean, I know for me, what works is just remaining open minded and
Hmm.
trying to remain grateful about my experiences in life. What do you think works well with you to be open and try new experiences?
Yeah. So being open minded is definitely part of that. And I think there's I've as you were saying that, I was stopping and thinking about my own kind of journey. And
Yeah.
because my journey has been along these rail tracks that were kind of set, right, it's actually
Mhm.
quite difficult to move myself off those rail tracks and say, actually, there's a different thing, and actually let the train derail and do something different. Um, so, the way I've looked at it is, okay, within the bounds of what I have, within the bounds of what I have in my capabilities and the sort of structures and setup that I have, where can I stretch things out, right? What can I do
Yeah.
things? So things like doing my podcast as an example, it's almost like a hobby that's become something much bigger. Similarly with coaching, that's become something that's become much bigger. So I still have my day job. I still got the things that I'm doing, but in the evenings, in those free moments, in the weekends, I'm doing these other things that's stretching my boundaries and stretching what I do for myself.
Yeah. I I don't know, what came to mind for me, as you said that, is it sounds like you found some inspiration in your life, something that inspired you and motivated you to wanna to try these things and experience them.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So it's
mhm,
actually on that point as well. Yeah. So what was
mhm,
it that inspired me? There's a number of things, right? So one of the first things was that I did a course on NLP, neuro linguistic programming, um, probably 15 years ago. And I did it really out of curiosity more than anything else because I'd heard about it. My brother was a practitioner, in fact, master practitioner of it. I wanted to understand more about it. And as I went through the course, and there's one moment that really sticks in my mind. So one of the aspects of neuro linguistic programming in the way in which it looks at you look at the world is it calls there's this concept of your world map, right? And your map of the world and my map of the world are completely different. And that map of the world is not a two-dimensional thing; it's a multi-dimensional thing. How we've created it based on filters that we've applied within us, but also the way in which we interact with the world. So some of us are a bit more visual, some of us auditory, some of us are more around sort of how we feel, the gestational or the taste parts. So all of our senses kind of come together in different ways. And I was talking to this woman on the course, and we had this exercise we had to do where you just had to, I can't remember the exact content of it, but we had to build rapport. And so 5 minutes of conversation, she's spoken to me, I've spoken to her. And at the end of it, there's a feedback session. And she says to me, I didn't get you. I didn't feel you. And it's like, okay, that was a wake up moment for me because up until then, all my communication had been based around the way I think, which is more logically, more structured, more of that sort of nature. She wanted to feel me. She wanted to get me, right? So she was looking for emotional language. She was looking for something that was more emotive, more me animated, really
mhm.
kind of feeling me. And so that was kind of the first part of an inspirational journey that kind of started where I recognized that communication between us all as humans, it varies according to the filters that you've got in, and if the rapport that we build, we think we've built rapport, but we haven't because we're not using the same language.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of one aspect. And then another aspect was I did a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within course. And one of the things Tony Robbins talks about is being in the service of others. And that kind of lit a light bulb in my mind. So this was during COVID lockdown. We did it as a virtual thing. Um, there was a light bulb moment that actually he's right. I've always enjoyed serving others, whether it was, through the work that I do, through just people coming in asking for my advice and guidance on things, whether it's the family, whatever it was, that was something that was kind of central to my values, if you like. So when I stopped and thought about that, and I thought about the communication patterns that I'd learned many years before, and then bringing all of that together in terms of, well, how could I help the world? What are those things that I'm good at, that are things that I enjoy doing, where there's a need for it in the world, and potentially I could get paid for. Well, that
Mhm.
kind of made a nice
Mhm.
package, if you like. So that's how I kind of got my inspiration to do what I do now. It wasn't an overnight journey. It took some
Yeah.
time, but the things started to fall in place.
That's so cool. I love, how analytical you are and how well you were able to express it and tell us your journey through that and then figuring out how to better communicate not only with yourself but other people. Because I've never really thought about it, honestly. Like I know that people speak different languages, not as in like Chinese, Japanese, American, or English, but like I like even when I talk to like let's say my mom, there's a different way that we discuss things that I know she understands than if I say like, "Oh, the sky's falling." She knows it's because I'm having a bad day. Someone else might look up and be like, "It's not actually falling."
Yeah.
Or like uh another thing that pops in my head when you were saying all that is when I first started my web development and SEO company, um, one of my mentors had told me that when it comes time to marketing, you want to make sure that you like I forget I'm blanking right now. Um, your needs don't matter. You want to put yourself in your customers' shoes because that's what's important. That's how you're going to
Yes.
attract people is thinking like your customer, not thinking like yourself. And like trying to do that and trying to facilitate um, rethink or trying to retrain my brain to think like my customer was really challenging for me at first because I'd never really been on the customer side of web development. To be honest, I just built
Mm.
them and had a passion for it. So yeah, it was a challenge for me at
I
first.
think on that point, actually, Gandhi, all anyone who's selling a service or a product, they
Mhm,
fall into that trap, right? They will say how wonderful their product is or how
mhm,
wonderful the capabilities are, or look at me and my skill set, but they
mhm,
don't stop and think, well, why should my potential customer care? What's in
right.
it? What's important to them? And so, with what I do in part of my coaching is, if someone's coming to me, I've got a client at the moment who I'm coaching who runs a soccer academy. That's what he runs. So what's important to him and what's important to the parents? Well, for him, his real why was actually he wanted to give these kids an opportunity to really expand and learn, not necessarily about soccer, but about fitness and nutrition and lead a healthy life, right? He wants them to be
Right.
healthy individuals. And of course, a parent wants their children to be a healthy individual. So now there's a linkage there between what he does, where someone else might say, well, yeah, I run the soccer academy because, I can make some money out of it or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's the wrong thing, right? The parents don't
Right.
care. They're not going to buy into you, but they're going to buy into the idea that making the kids healthy is good for
Right.
their mental health. It's good for their physical health. They're
Mhm,
learning about nutrition. They're learning about these other things. They're learning social skills. All of those are the important parts of it. The
mhm.
soccer is a secondary element to it almost. And that's that's how he's set it up and that's how he's thinking. And I think he's got a great vision for how his academy can grow.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like that's so cool. Like I've even noticed too, like when talking with people, like I try to be more empathetic at times too, even when I'm like just
Hmm.
talking to like having a normal conversation with people and like I know cadence in your voice really matters at times because I've always been one of those people that like my face doesn't always match what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, like, I could be telling a horrible story of, like, how I had this really bad, terrible day, but I'm dying the entire time, and it's not because I think it's funny, but it's just because it's awkward and uncomfortable for me to talk about
Mm,
bad stuff like that,
yeah.
and, a lot of people used to, like, shun me because of that, because they thought that I was making fun of them or I was trying to be negative or make yeah, just being
It's interesting
weird or
what you say
mean.
there because quite often, so for me, my
Yeah.
face kind of says it before I even say it, right?
Yeah.
People can read me like a book, but for others, quite often it's almost like a masking mechanism. So
Mhm.
you might be sharing a really difficult or awkward story or a moment that happened to you, but you're trying to almost protect the other person through the way your body language is, and you're
Right.
smiling through it. And yet, it's a terrible story. It's a horrible thing that happened, but you're smiling through it because you're almost trying to, protect that person, or you're not sure what the reaction's going to be, and therefore,
Right.
then you're kind of masking that as a result of that. So it's interesting. It's the fact that you're aware of it is, it's really good because many of us aren't aware of how we're communicating and how that message is coming across. And therefore then we then wonder, like, why didn't that message land, or why didn't
Right.
we have that? Why didn't we hit it off, when we're talking about something?
It's hard. It's rough, and I'm so glad to be able to talk to you and, like, divulge some of this information. It's a lot of light bulbs are going off for me right now, honestly. I don't know. I just wish that well, no, I don't wish that. I never mind. I was gonna say that I wish that we all could be able to understand each other, like, on some level, but at the same
Yeah.
time, then I feel like that would take away our unique qualities. So that's
Hmm.
why I'm like, "No." Retract on that thought.
You used an interesting term there because you said labels, and that's
Yeah.
something that we all carry so many labels with us, and um, the way in which we communicate depends on the label that you're looking at the time. So you mentioned, for example, talking to your mom,
Mhm.
and how you're so the label is you're the daughter, right, and
Mhm,
she's the
yeah.
mom, and therefore then there's a communication style
Mhm.
that happens.
Mhm.
Whereas right now you're a podcast host, I'm a guest. We've got two different labels, and
Yeah.
there's a different communication style, so it's really interesting. We literally have thousands of labels, right? You're a daughter, you're a sibling, you're an employee, you're a driver, you're a pedestrian, you're a passenger, you're a this, you're that, you're a student. There's so many labels we carry, and each of those has a little nuance on the way in which we communicate.
Yeah, it's true, and I know when I was younger, like, my mom I feel like a good way my mom, expressed or told me to, behave myself and talk to people and communicate to people was, like she's like, "You have your school friends, you have your work friends, you have your home friends, you have your best friends." She's like, "Each one
Yes.
of these groups, you don't divulge the same information to. Like, there's certain groups that you feel more comfortable with, and I
Hmm.
can tell this person this. But on the other hand, another person might not be able to handle that information. So, to
Yes.
keep that information back. It's not lying. It's just they can't handle
Yeah.
it or
Yeah.
you don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
enough to talk to them about it. So that's how I've always viewed things when I talk to people. I'm like, okay, so
Hmm.
where do they fall in line? Are they good friends? Are they acquaintances? Like how much information can I tell this person?
Yeah. And that's a good. I love the way your mom kind of gave you that advice, because it's true, right? You
Yeah.
Again, back to those labels things. There's different labels and different ways of communicating with different people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like how well you're able to speak upon this stuff. Like I can tell you're very knowledgeable about
Thank you.
communication. I I don't know, I kind of just want to understand a little bit better about like I guess the different styles of communication and I guess the best way that you feel would be to go about speaking with somebody that you've never like talked to before.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So interestingly, I was very shy as
Hmm.
growing up, and if you
Yeah.
put me in a room, my job was in sales, right? Remember this? My job was in
Yeah.
sales, and yet I would struggle to just randomly go and talk to someone
Hmm.
and start up a conversation. It took a
Hmm.
lot for me to start doing that, and what I recognized was I was too scared of judgment. I was too
Hmm.
scared of failure. I was too scared of things, and I don't really necessarily know what that comes back to, but I believe a part of it is because of a number of aspects. One of which was um, I yeah, so I'm of Indian background. Our mother tongue is Gujarati, and at home, I when we moved to the UK, I was only like sort of 3 years old, 2.5 years old. My siblings decided that because we're in Britain, they're going to speak to me in English rather than the
Hmm.
mother tongue. So I started
Yeah.
to learn. I was speaking in English from a very young age, with my parents was in my mother tongue. But what happened is that I developed a British accent in my mother tongue. So I speak Gujarati with a British accent, and
That's so
people would
cool.
start to take a mickey out of me, right? Or they'd
Mhm.
kind of not necessarily take a mickey, but like, oh, he speaks differently.
Yeah.
And that, when you're little, when you're young, that you just come up, right? Just go
Mhm.
inside of yourself. And so that was one aspect that I think really kind of had a role to play. And another was I was so much younger than my other siblings. Some other siblings were out there communicating with others almost on my behalf. I wasn't necessarily speaking with people. So that had another aspect. So that was difficult for me to overcome. But then I stopped and recognized that it was that I was scared of being judged. I was scared of, what people would think. And I just decided one day that I don't care. I don't care what people think. I'm just going to say. And to be fair, I had a few work colleagues who were always telling me, "You're a good communicator. You speak well. You say this, you say that." But I never believed them until I got into close friendships with them, and it became, "You're not just saying this; you actually mean it, right?" I started
Yeah.
to feel, "Oh, you actually mean this," and that gave me some further kind of confidence to just go ahead and have those conversations. So, in answer to your question about tips of, just how to go ahead and have a conversation with someone, set aside any prejudgments you have about yourself. Set aside any fear of failure or judgment that you think others might have. Just simply go ahead and communicate and have that conversation. And if that person doesn't, if you don't gel, you don't doesn't that doesn't tick, then okay, maybe that wasn't the conversation for you to have at that time. Maybe it was the timing wasn't right. Maybe that individual wasn't right. But just set aside all these limiting beliefs, right? That's the thing, the limiting beliefs.
I like that. That's beautiful. I love it. Because I feel like it holds so true though. Like I know for me personally, sometimes it's easier to talk online because I can have like a facade and have this
Yeah.
persona that doesn't necessarily match who I am. So like it makes it easier to be able to communicate with people that I don't know, or sometimes even people that I do know, because I feel like it takes away that stress and those
Yes.
nagging thoughts. But then it gets confusing because it's online or it's over text, and they'll perceive it one way, and it's like, no, that I didn't mean it like that. I was trying to say this. So it's conflicting at times.
Yes. Yeah. Text definitely is a very awkward one because how you write something, how someone receives it, it's can be you're saying one thing, I might receive it in a completely different fashion because it's
Yeah,
written. And I'm not seeing the full body language. I'm not hearing the tonality. I'm not hearing the inflection in your voice. I'm not seeing the eyes, the smile,
yeah.
the whole picture, right? So it just comes across wrong for that reason. So there's always, yes, we live in a virtual world. You and I are talking over a platform. You're in America, I'm in the UK, right? Millions of, well, not millions, thousands of miles between us. So it helps, but our connection would be much stronger if we were face to face and
Yeah.
actually in person with each other, because then you'd see the whole of my body, you'd see the whole body language, I'd see your whole body language, and that is really important. And in this world of virtual working and working from home that we have, there is still no substitute for that face to face meeting.
Yeah. I completely agree. I really do. Like I know, even just for this podcast sometimes, like I'll be honest, I originally had it set up so that I would meet with people, and then I would use AI to generate questions based off of what they had told me through the interview. And then we'd go and meet the next time and discuss those questions. And I felt like it was so unauthentic, especially with this podcast being based around what it means to be human and authenticity
Yes.
and rawness. And I absolutely hated it. And it was turning into a bad time because I was so insecure and had no confidence in my knowledge and worth and my speaking skills. And that was a
Mhm.
reflection on me, not on the guests. And at first I wanted to blame the guests for not being good speakers. But it was me. It was me.
Yeah.
So I've decided to try to be more open minded and give myself a better chance and just start actually having raw, authentic conversations with people because that's what the listeners expect and they also deserve. And
Hmm.
I just feel really grateful, I guess, that I've started to do it this way, the way I've originally wanted to do it, because
Yeah.
now I'm not only gaining more insight into the guests, I feel like in a more authentic way, but also I'm practicing my communication skills. I'm learning how
Hmm.
to speak better. I'm learning how to talk to people. I'm understanding, like you said, the body language and the cadence and how people orchestrate and facilitate their communication styles. And I'm learning how other people's language and how they talk. And it's just so cool. I feel like it's so cool to be able to um, take off the mask and just absorb all of this information. And
Yeah. So interesting what you just said there. It really ties into this bold coaching framework that I have, because you had a limiting belief, right? The
yeah.
limiting belief was that I had to use AI to generate the questions, and that wasn't there. And now you've changed your belief to actually, I've got this, I can do it, right? So that's the first thing. So that's what the B is, right? Is your belief system. What do you believe in? And then the O is, okay, I'm going to own this. I'm going to take this on board, and I'm going to do it, right? I'm not going to
Yeah.
rely on the AI, the machine, to do this for me. And you said liberate, and liberate is absolutely the L in the bold framework, right? It's
That's
the
awesome.
liberating yourself from that, and doing it, doing the doing. And then D is the delivery, right? Actually getting from A to B within your podcast. So you've just summarized for me in your little conversation there what my bold framework actually builds upon, and that's what it actually is, and
That's so
that's how I
cool.
coach people.
That is so cool.
It's
Maybe I
almost
should
like I
join your
set it up.
coaching. Yeah, I was gonna yeah, maybe you should be my coach.
Yeah.
I feel like we could work well together. That's funny. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I felt intimidated at first, and I think that's why my insecurities went about because I
Uh-huh.
get to meet with guests that are like beautiful speakers like you, and know they know what they want. They know how to talk because they've been doing this a little bit more than I have. And, uh, they just have a certain style that they're comfortable with or understand better. And I'm still. This is my second podcast. I got burnt out from the first one because it was just. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
Right.
And so I really enjoy this one and I really want it to be good, but like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be completely honest. I've watched a couple YouTube videos, I've read a couple articles, and I'm like, well, I don't know because they're all so vague. They don't really tell you. I mean, they tell you what to do, but it's everyone's different, so it's hard to like really pinpoint what to do.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the most important thing you're doing is you're being authentic. That's the
yeah.
most important part because that's where the connection will happen. And you see so many podcasts and the like where there isn't that authenticity, and so therefore then you as a listener or a viewer, you don't get drawn into the conversation, right?
Right.
Because it's like a facade. It's like, it's too well produced, it's too well polished, it's too this, it's too that.
Yeah.
But here, this is a raw conversation that we're having, and you've just like openly said, "But I don't know what I'm doing," and yet you're the podcast host, right? It's your podcast. So isn't that brilliant? I think that's brilliant that you're saying that, and we're having a great conversation as a result
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I feel like I've learned so much from you already. I thank you for being a guest and thank you for taking the opportunity to be on my podcast because it means the world to me. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
you've had so much brilliant information. It just fascinates me. Like, who would think that communicating with one another would be this challenging? It seems like the most simplex concept, but it's just there's so many levels packed into it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is, and I mean,
Mhm,
let's face it. There's so many other aspects as well. So communication, yes, we talk about communication, and words are only whatever 7% of the total communication. The
yeah.
style, the tone, the body language, the inflection,
Mhm,
the pauses, the silence, the up
mhm,
and down, all of these things, right? They're all part of the communication. But then there's another layer as well, which is how you're receiving it, how I'm broadcasting it, or vice versa. So there's that aspect, and then there's another layer, which is neurodiversity. We're all different,
mhm.
right? We're all
Yeah,
wired in a slightly different fashion,
mhm,
and so um, it just makes it what in theory should be quite a straightforward and simple thing actually makes it very complicated. And because our language is so rich and so varied, we're not just relying on simple. Like how my dog just barks, right? He barks and he does his occasional sort of like, I don't know how you growl, I suppose, right? And
yeah.
that's it's limited kind of communication, but a dog communicates what they want through their eye contact, through their body language, through their tail, and all of those elements. But it's a simpler communication model.
Yeah,
Humans have a very complex communication model, so it does. I can understand why people would feel awkward in
yeah.
communicating. Um, and
Mhm.
one of my podcast guests, he's written a book. His name is, and it's Oscar Trimboli, and his book is called "Are You Listening?"
Yeah.
And actually, the other part of human communication is that we don't listen to understand; we listen to respond.
Mhm.
And so as you're in a conversation with someone, your mind's already thinking about what I'm going to respond with, rather than actually just letting it sit there and saying, "Okay, yeah." thank you for communicating that, and
Yeah.
then moving on with the conversation. So yes, lots of nuances to this.
Well, speaking of that, I did have one thing that popped in my mind real quick.
Okay.
Can we just establish the fact that there's no such thing as bad words? Like, it's just the way you perceive them. It's like like me as a person, I am making the word bad. I'm making the meaning of the word bad. But words in
Yes,
general are not bad.
that's true. It's a bit like there was a saying when I was growing up. I don't know if kids still say it. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah,
Um, that words only have the meaning that you give to it, and in fact, everything in life, right? When we stop and think about it, something happening has no meaning except the meaning that you give it,
yeah.
and so the meaning that you give it could be different to the meaning someone else gives it, right? And so but that thing that happened is just a fact. It's just there. And um, so being conscious of the meaning that you give something, whether it's words or whether it's an event or whether it's something, is one of the first steps in reframing how you see life and how you see the world, and therefore then how your outcomes come about, right? And how you look at things generally.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. With that being said, because I mean, I thought of it, but I didn't fully divulge the concept. So now you have explained it to me a little bit better. So I guess that
Okay.
would make a little bit more sense as to why they do say that there are bad words, because of the way that like people are perceiving it, and like the experiences that they've gone through and the meaning behind it to them. So
Yes.
I understand now.
I mean,
I
we
understand
could
that a little
take
better
we
now.
could take an extreme example, right? And I don't know if it's too extreme an example, but the N word. The N
Okay.
word has a lot of connotation, right, and a lot of
Yeah.
meaning. And I would say that's a bad word
Okay.
because of the way in which it's used, the context in which it's used, the context in which it came up,
Yeah.
and so it's not a word that I would happily use at all. In fact, it's one that I would absolutely avoid saying. But you could argue that it's just a word
Right.
and that the meaning that it has is only the meaning I'm giving to it, not someone else. So it's, and that's an extreme example. And
It's a
maybe
good one
that's,
though.
not a good
No, it's a good
example.
example. No, it is. It
That,
is.
that's one of those things, right?
Yeah. Well, because I guess another example of that would be, as far as I know, the term, because I'm white and black, so the term mulatto.
Hmm.
Well, people sometimes say, "Oh, that's a derogatory term," or but it's not. It's like, in my opinion, because that, as far as I know, it's the factual, correct, proper term to use when describing somebody who is white and black.
Right. Okay.
I guess I just get a little bit confused at times because how are you supposed to utilize certain words if somebody gets offended by them when it's the proper way to describe something?
Hmm. It's that's a difficult one actually, and I don't know the answer to that. What
It's
I would
okay.
say is, if we know that certain words carry a certain meaning for a large part of the population, then we generally don't use them. Similarly, swear words, right? We don't use them in general day-to-day conversation because the societal rule is that that's not a good word.
Yeah,
But some people do use it. Some people, right? They drop a swear word in every other word as they're speaking, and sometimes they do it for effect. They do it for shock value. Sometimes they do it because that's just the way they grew up, and that was the way the communication happened in their life.
yeah. That's a good point. That is a good point. So I guess, hmm. So I guess I don't know. I feel a little stumped now, just because I'm trying to reflect on what we've talked about, and like I guess how to analyze it and utilize it in my daily life when talking to people is what the thoughts that are going through my brain right now. And
Hmm.
I want like a solid, tangible answer as to how to facilitate conversations with everyone as a whole. But it's not going to happen that way.
Well, I think if you pause and think about um, what do I want the other person to get from this communication, right?
Mhm.
That's the first thing. Back to when you did your SEO work, right?
Yeah.
And the learning, what is it that the customer wants rather
Right.
than, all my great skills and capability? The other thing is back to the point around we all communicate differently, but one thing that you want people to do is to feel you, right? And that feeling is is through the words that you use. And being your authentic self is how people make a connection. Having a little bit of vulnerability is how people make a connection. You've just been very vulnerable on your own podcast saying you don't know what you're doing, and that's going to make a connection. So there's these little things that you can do as you're looking to communicate with people that
Yes.
builds that rapport, and that then builds the connection to have that communication happening.
Okay. So from what you're saying is I just have to be mindful and an active listener, and from there I can better build my conversation with somebody. Um,
Yeah, but of course, think about what they want, right, from the
right.
conversation, or think about how you want to move them in a
Mhm,
particular direction with the conversation. If there's something, because if we stop and think about like a business presentation,
mhm,
oftentimes it's a one-way broadcast of, you know, this is what we do. Here's look at our
mhm,
company. Wasn't it wonderful?
mhm,
Whatever. But actually, the role of a presentation or a business meeting is to move something forward, right? How are we going to move this forward? This particular project we're working on, or this particular thing. So when you're in that kind of like sales pitch moment, your job isn't to sell. Your job is to help the customer understand, help them to get why it's important for them to move this forward. What's in it for them, right?
right.
With them, what's in it for me
Mhm,
is the ultimate thing that drives people and motivates people.
right. That is true. Okay. So important things: be an active listener. Think about the person's needs or how they would uh, benefit from the conversation,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
uh, and be an active. Did I say active listener already?
you said active listener, yeah,
Okay. And
and the words. What words you're going to use to make them feel you?
yeah,
Be
okay,
and be a little bit vulnerable in that communication, because that's
okay,
when the rapport
mhm,
really starts to build.
okay. Vulnerability for think of the other person, active listener, enthusiasm, or no animation.
Well, yeah, animation, yeah, all those things.
Yeah, okay. All right. Hold on. I'm about to write this stuff down because I really feel like I definitely I don't know. I want to be a better communicator. I really do.
Uh-huh.
And like I said earlier, like sometimes it's hard because I do, like you said, you want to protect the other person, or you're afraid of rejection, or you're afraid of what they'll think because of what you say. And I concentrate on that too much at times, especially
Right.
like I feel like I'm backwards because when it's somebody I don't know, I don't worry
Uh-huh.
about it as much. But when it's somebody that I do know and I feel comfortable with, I get more in my head about things. Um,
Yeah.
because like if it's a stranger, like I don't care. I might never ever see you again. So if this doesn't go right, like it's okay. But for people that I know and care about, like I don't want them judging me. I don't want to be
Yes.
rejected. So I don't know. And I'll be honest, I don't really have many friends. So I'd like to network, and I'd like to be a good friend.
Yes, I'm sure you have lots of friends, and you'll make more friends through this podcast.
Yeah, I have been, and hopefully we can be friends.
Of
I'm really
course.
enjoying talking with you.
Thank you.
um, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else that you want to touch on or talk about?
Um, well, I think yeah, we've had a really great
Mhm.
conversation, and
Yeah,
the theme is what makes us human, right? So
right.
what makes us human is, as you say, don't rely on the AI. AI is here, right? It's in the world around us. I use
Yes.
AI every single day. You probably use AI every single day.
Yeah.
Our listeners will be using AI every single day. Um, but always remember, AI is a machine, and it doesn't have emotional intelligence, which is where the human element comes in.
Right.
And so the emotional intelligence is what differentiates us from the AI machine. So an AI agent could probably take over your job, or could do something for you, do things, make you more efficient, whatever. But what it can't do is apply emotional intelligence. And that's what makes us human, is that emotional intelligence. And it's some of the things we spoke about earlier, right? Around the belief system, about the way in which we look at things, the communication styles. I've even lost track of what we spoke about, but we spoke about a
We
lot,
spoke a lot.
and all of those elements are what make us human, and
Mhm.
they're the things that give us that emotional intelligence.
And that is true. I love that. I love that last little nugget. That was beautiful. Well, thank you, Sanji. So, um, it's been another wonderful episode of Gandhi Slays. I'm your host, Gandhi. This is my host. I'm your guest host. Okay. I was waiting for you to say your name and say bye.
So Sanjay Mehta.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.